see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, March 7th, 2021. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter 5. And as usual, we have our co-host on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
Hello.
And our guest today, Dread Pirate Higgs and Boudreaux. Hello, all.
Hello.
Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you get the feeling you're the only non-believer in Knoxville, well, you're just not. There are several atheist, free-thinking, and rationalist groups that exist right here in Knoxville, and we'll be telling you how you can connect with them right after the Midshow Break. Also, did you know that there's a streaming call-in atheist TV/video show broadcasting here in Knoxville and has been for over 10 years? Did you know that, Wombat?
Yeah, and there's a big prize pool at all the events, but it's basically just army shooting game simulations. But if you like that, go for it. A lot of people like it, though. I think they make them every year, and they're like the most biggest selling video games ever, but not for me.
You're still on the wrong channel.
I'm glad people like them.
But we'll tell you how you can find the show after the Midshow Break. Give you a little more information about it. If you'd like to interact with us during the show, go to Facebook and search for our Digital Freethought Radio Hour page and use the messaging function to send us questions or comments. Wombat, what do we have going today for his topic?
I'd like to talk about deism for a little bit. In fact, I think you were the one that recommended the topic, and when I first saw it, it looked like deism. Like you want to talk about the science of death or something? No, I didn't know.
The science of dying.
Okay.
Deism.
Yeah, deism, the study of dying. I was just like, well, it seems like a pretty easy topic. I think at least everyone's going to try it at least once.
And everybody's got an opinion on it.
But it's going to actually be more lighthearted discussion on the topic of deism. Before we get into it, throwing it to our own Dread Pirate Higgs for our weekly invocation.
Our noodly lord, who art in a colander, al dente be thy noodles. Thy blood be rum, thy sauce be yum, with meat as it is with vegetables. Give us this day our garlic bread, and forgive us our cussing, as we put up with those who cuss against us.
Yes.
And lead us not into Keatoism, but deliver us some carbs. For thine are the noodles, and the sauces, and the grog, whenever and ever.
Ramen. I had to get some carbs in. My bad. I want to do a quick overview of how everyone's been over the last week. Dread Pirate, how you been since the last couple of weeks, actually?
Okay, well, we had the judicial review. I think the last time we talked, it had happened, and the judge had not yet come down with his written decision. So he decided he decided to dismiss the petition. And this whole thing seems to hinge around this idea of satire as a means to dismiss people with claims like mine. So essentially, he was saying, because I see you as engaged in satire, anything you have to say we don't have to pay attention to it. It's not a violation of any kind of rights to a religious expression or freedom. So I have an appointment with a lawyer this afternoon. I know it's Sunday, but he's a good friend of mine, and we're going to discuss next steps. And potentially the way it's going to go is we're working on our objects for becoming a religious charitable organization nationally. And so if we get it, we're good. If we don't, then we take it to the Supreme Court of Canada. Yeah. So
it seems like the judge. Yeah, it seems like the judge made a hard line rule of I can decide what's a religion and what's not a religion.
Exactly.
And that's not what the government's role should be.
No, it's not.
It should be inherently just like the basic focus of like, it's not your job to say what is religion, what isn't. And at the bottom line, I'm just asking to wear my hat on an
Yeah, exactly, right?
religious garb. Like, why are you making this a big deal? Like,
Exactly.
I'm clearly going through efforts to
Yeah.
face this discrimination that you're putting on me.
Yeah. Well, I've had a few interviews on the radio and for articles in papers. I'll be in the Toronto Star, for instance. It should be up there today, actually.
Blow it
so
up.
getting some profile out there and maybe finding a lawyer that's actually willing to take something on pro bono to defend constitutional rights, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a constitutional issue. I also think like in the more wider picture, your organization has done weddings, community service. You guys have helped people in a number of capacities, like particularly if they're, secular in a, I don't know what other options are available for me. Even your chats for coffee was like, hey, I'll sit down with you and we can just talk, have some coffee. I can pick your mind on stuff. I'm not here to sell you any ideas, but just like a nice place where we can think critically, even if you are religious or not. Here's a good place to just have community with one another and talk over a table. That's a fantastic service that you don't get from even like religious groups. Because there's always the sell. There's like, hey, and now why don't you come to my potluck? And you can come on Sunday church and I can take care of your kids. It's like, no.
Exactly.
Back down, Wendy. It's all good. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's a silly thing, but I'm glad it's documented silliness because these are the steps that need to be done. I think you're seeing a lot of the stuff that like civil rights people had faced early 60s where it's just like, really? Are you in writing being this evil? It's like, this is normal. It's like, ooh, this is gonna look bad in history. Yeah. But I'm glad someone went through the trouble of documented it. Yeah. Like I'm glad someone was there with a photograph, seeing people getting hosed down, people getting recorded. Like you can't sit on the front of the bus. People taking pictures of those signs, like the printing out sign. People had to like, are you sure we should make a sign that says colors only? Like, is this okay for everybody? It's like, it's probably. I mean, that's not good for anybody. Yeah. So you're making the effort for history. I appreciate it.
I've also been in contact with the BC Humanist Association. So they've thanked me for my activism and are engaging me to participate in some of their activities. So I think that's really good.
Bujo, you got any ideas on this? He's been going through this court battle for a while.
Yeah, no, I applaud you for going through it, and it's got to be tough. And I really question this judge and his ability to just decide that he can choose. Because I always thought that was the one thing almost kind of poetic about what the Church of Flying Spaghetti Monster does is it's almost in that argument is infallible unless you agree that any religion can be judged that way. And I think a really good example of that was the Satanic Temple. Did something similar where
we're using your book.
The
Satanists are like, we're using your book. Like, what do you mean? Like, we're crazy? It's like, we're using the book that you guys use.
This example,
these characters exist in your religion too.
They went after the Westboro Baptist Church, which all of you, I'm sure, are familiar with this group, and they went to like the founder of it. I think it was either the grandmother or the grandfather of the leaders, and they went to her grave and they performed what's called a pink mass. And what they basically did is turned their soul gay. And so like they had this whole legal issue with it. And basically they pushed them in a corner where the only way they could sue them or take issue with what they did is if they admit it worked. So it was,
that's so good.
Beautiful service. I don't know
that's wonderful.
That's great. You can't sue for damages if there's no damages, right?
Right, exactly.
Oh, it's good. I love it. What a stupid system we have. Man, litigation is so dumb. Oh, but that's so perfect. I love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will also say this too. On the flip side, so like Dredd, I like what you're doing because it's the right form of activism on the right side of history. Westboro Baptist Church is on the wrong side of history, but is likewise doing the same useful sort of documentation that I appreciate. Mm-hmm. Because when we have, for example, like a gay pride rally or like our Black Lives Matter rally or whatever, I don't know why West Powerwood Baptists would be anti-BLM, but they probably are. Let's not give them that. But if we have a march, they're always on the sides with their signs and picketing and being like, God hates gay people. God hates, unions that are outside the Bible and all that stuff. And they have citations on their posters. So it's not like it's like a dubious or nebulous or ambiguous statement that they're making. They're like, no, the Bible says this. And meanwhile, when we're walking down the parades, there's Christians with us. We're like, no, God loves everybody. Yeah, like, God loves gay people too. Yeah, I respect gender labels and stuff. It's like, yeah, but these guys are citing the Bible. I think you guys are stepping away from it and are thankfully with us on this, but you are so desperately far apart from what your doctrine is telling you that it's good to have the reminder of where it's coming from, because it can't just be the impression that you have of your book. It has to be, is this book relevant or not? And these guys are citing the book. These guys are right there with the signs in black and white. And you're here with us saying that isn't representing what you believe. So maybe you should be further apart from your strict dogma than you think. You can't have it both ways. Eric,
Ty, you just articulated something that I've been thinking for years, and I've never really been able to kind of put it into words. So that I want to point out that what you just said is a really, really important piece that a lot of my like somewhat religious friends and family just don't get. I mean, it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You either believe just little pieces of the all the good bits, or So well said.
Thank you. I do want to know where the phrase "you can't have your cake and eat it too," because I think that's the whole point of cake, right? Because I said that, and I'm like, why does that even make sense? English doesn't make sense. There's a bunch of Chinese guys in our lab, and I will say stuff like that. It's like frog in your throat. What does that mean? It's like, yeah, I don't know what that means. It's just a thing that I say. It's a thing that a lot of Americans say, but we don't know why we say it. It's like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, yeah, it's like frogs can't live in your throat. It's like, I know, Lay, I know. Let's move on. Anyway,
a birthday card once that had two really attractive ladies on it, and you open it up and it said, "You can't have your Kate and Edith too."
Oh no, that took a right turn right at the right moment. I'm glad the name finished because I did not know where I was going. We're still FCC.
Nice.
Larry, how you been since last week? Just want to check in on you.
I'm doing fine. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat.
You can't do that. That's illegal. They can't live in there.
Yeah. No, I've been playing computer games and just hanging out at the house, not getting out very much. I have my second COVID shot coming up next week, so I'm looking forward to that.
Cool.
I've been playing this new computer game, EVE Online. It's
massive, we'll never
game.
See you again.
No, and
we'll never see Larry again.
I died my first time this morning. And I don't mean my ship blew up. I mean, they blew up my ship and then blew up my pod, which is inside the ship and where I died. So that wasn't very good. But it didn't cost me anything. That actually saved me some time. I was traveling at the time, and I just showed up at my destination, which is cool.
Sure.
So what game was that?
EVE Online.
Okay.
Look it up. It's old. It's like 17 years old, still going. It's a massive multiplayer game. It's all takes place in space on your ship. It's all about ship battles and stuff. But it's really cool.
Cool.
It is. I would consider it like Dungeons and Dragons, but in space. But also, if you really, really like spreadsheets, because every single time someone says there's this really cool thing going on EVE Online, and they're explaining this brilliant story of like plot and intrigue and spies and people backstabbing each other, I want to see a video of the gameplay, and it's just people with spreadsheets going like, you see how cell 5C
well, if you're on the bridge of your ship, you're not actually turning a steering wheel or firing a button. You're hitting items on the screen, different things. And that's what you're doing in the game.
And flying is like charting a course. You're not like piloting anything. You're just, it's realistic to the point where it's like, this feels like a government job. You should get paid to do this.
Yeah, but watch some videos. It's pretty cool.
It really
have a lot of fun.
Cool. Boudreaux, I wanted to check in on you as well. How have you been since last week?
Good. Back from vacation now, trying to get in reality. My son is back in school. He's in 4th grade. He's in person. That was crazy last week. And my daughter goes back. She's in 7th grade, and she goes back next week. So she's got one more week of in person, which means I'm probably going to go back on campus and work a little bit. I won't have kids at the house, so
Sure.
And I'm fully vaccinated, but still mask up and do what I can. But
we might want to talk about masks just real quick. I think is it accurate that Kentucky has resolved their mask ordinances? Are they one of the states that have relinquished the mandate to be masked? Because I know a lot of GOP led states have the opinion that masks aren't needed anymore. Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, thankfully, still kept it. That was unexpected, but a number of other states.
Democratic governor, and he's been Andy Bashir. I suspect you guys are going to hear about him at the national level in a few years. He really, really took this to heart, and the things that he's done in Kentucky have been. He's getting all kinds of junk for it, but I think he did a really good job, and I think we're still masking and all that. So, but yeah, I'll be interested to see how things change.
Yeah, I have some cousins in Texas, and they're saying people weren't wearing masks already, but the few that really were are more encouraged to not wear them at all. Like the people who were on the fence about it, and there's only 8% of people in Texas that have been vaccinated altogether. Only 8%. And so it is an insanely frustrating, even sickening to his stomach and to mine as well, to have leadership get vaccinated, right? And then tell other people, you don't have to wear a mask. And it's like, are you literally trying to kill us? The answer is yes. And so I put into the good old Google, and this is a bit biased, and I'm sure it's bad, but like it's so plainly bad, and it goes back to what I was saying about dread. But I was like, I Googled Republicans are trying to kill us, right? Just for fun. I put that in and hit enter. I just wanted to see what came out, and there were like 40,000 articles that had the exact same label, but they're all backdated to like 1996, 2017. I'm like, this isn't new. People knew this for a while, and it's just like one case after the other, and it started to depress me. I was just like, okay, let's just close this for now. I think the main thing is, I think the main takeaway is, even though governors are removing it, they're doing it to maintain popularity with the people who weren't doing it already, right? It's not like people are on the phone waiting to hear what the governor said so that they can start being more unsafe. Like those people aren't who are watching the news for direction. They're doing what they want and looking for justification after the fact. And so in this country, at least in America, we have never had a very good track record for the security and welfare of the individual. Like we don't do that very well. And as a result, things like this happen where outbreaks happen and the leadership have no capacity to be able to control or maintain what the public does, especially on an individual basis. And so it's up to you as an individual, until we figure that out, until we make this union more perfect, is to take care of yourself. And the easiest thing you can do is wear a mask and to help to reduce the spread of an infection that is real and is rampant and still exists. And as unfortunate as it might sound, is going to be around for a lot longer still too. And so it's an easy thing to wear a shirt. It's not a form of oppression to be clothed outside. Same mask procedure helps you from not only not having to like shave, because I know a lot of people don't like thinking about shaving all the time, but also protects you from viruses. Also take care of your mask too. Like make sure you wash it. You don't throw it out on the ground. It's a PPE. It's contaminated, and you need to treat it as such. So just take care of it. My quick little update for last week is I got my second vaccination shot. I had very little symptoms, either that or I slept through it, and I feel healthy and I feel great. And so if you're still on the fence of terms of getting a vaccination, you have the opportunity to get vaccinated, consider yourself incredibly fortunate, because if I wasn't running a lab where, like we had to get vaccinated because we're working with filtration, I probably wouldn't have had this opportunity. And I would say there are people at my job who passed on it just because they were worried that they didn't want to be the first ones in line. And I'm like, you're not the first one in line. You're not even number 100,000. You're like so behind, and you have the opportunity to get this. Get it. I feel great. I'm really looking forward to swimming again in a public pool with people like brushing elbows against them. I went skating at a park yesterday with friends, and the first thing I did when we met each other, they were vaccinated too, was we shook hands. We're like, hey, it's nice to see you. Bizarre. It felt so weird. I was just like, oh my God, human contact when I meet someone. This is bizarre. It felt good. It felt good. All right. Speaking of things that feel good, Deism and Larry's soon to be rants. I want to get through all of them. Larry, what do you got on the
rant? Just talking about it. And shout out to Dale, our old co-host. We're talking about deism, and I'm sure if I get something wrong, he'll let me know. He's been a deist. He's been the only deist I've known for a long time. But what this really comes back to is the arguments that Christian apologists and most apologists of all religions put forward. The argument from the first cause, the argument from design, complexity, morality, whatever. All of these arguments just point to a God, but they all think that it points to their God, but it doesn't get you there. All it does is get you to a God, even if they are true. And, they don't have any evidence to show that the argument from the first cause actually means that it was a God who did it. It could have been anything. It could be pixies or fairies for that matter.
Yeah, pointing doesn't show proof, right?
Right. But just for the argument's sake, we could say that, okay, it does. It points to a God. But how do you get from that God to your God, and not some other God that's been worshipped by humans for the last 10,000 years, or even some God we've never heard of, or a God that died in the Big Bang, or he just lost interest and went away and has no interest in us whatsoever? The nice thing and good thing about deism to me is there's no dogma. There's no preachers telling you what God wants you to do. There's no holy book. There's no omniscient judge watching your every thought and ready to cast you into some hell for a wrong thought. There's no thought police. I think it's a good way to go if you have to have a God belief. That'd be a good one. Also, you can make up your own heaven. And you can disregard the concept of hell if you want to. It's all up to you, because nobody has answers. If there were real answers out there, there wouldn't be 10,000 different religions all over the world, all saying and all absolutely sure that their answers are correct, and they're contradictory to the others. So that's my thoughts on the matter. What are yours?
I'll condense my point real quick, and then we can throw it out to Boudreaux and then Dredd. But I consider like the main religions to be delusional, and I find deism to be just delusion light. Like if it was a brand item in a store, it's like all the great taste of delusion with half the calories, right? Yep. And it seems to me like
no name delusion.
Yeah, it's great that you don't have any, central dogma, but you're still falling into a really bad reasoning loop that's making you believe things that you have no evidence to support or trust or test or in any way give you a credible or a tangible excuse to convince yourself that something is actually the case, which is a very dangerous mindset, because you can easily transition that into believing anything with no evidence that you can't test and verify.
It's the bedrock for other beliefs that you can build on.
Yeah, it's the hook that pulls you into a bunch of much more insane or inane, I would say, to be even woo. I don't even know if that's nicer. Inane fallacies. But Eric, I'd like to get your opinion on this. Deism, what's it all about? What do you think of it?
So yeah, I like your point that this is kind of like, religion light, and it kind of gets back to what you're saying earlier. It's if you strip away all kind of the dogma and the bad bits of religion that were, that really have good reasons to have come this far. I mean, there were reasons to not have gay children when you had a farm and you needed your kids to make babies, and so a lot of that makes sense how it came about, and now we've grown and learned a lot more, so we can kind of move that away. So if someone's, I guess I'm less thinking like you guys are, that it's a gateway to more bad thinking. It kind of feels like, I forget who said it, but it kind of gives you that gold-plated reason to stop thinking. Maybe it was Hitch, but it could have been Sam Harris. I don't know. Sam Harris, I think.
Oh, Sam Harris, bingo all the way. Oh, all right. Continue.
30 minutes. I made it 30.
Nice.
So yeah, it makes me feel a little better. It almost feels more like progress, I guess, if you have someone who just believes in the origin of the universe is godly in nature, but then there's nothing else to it. But yeah, you're right. It's just pointing and not really proof. So I don't know. I guess I'm less worried about it and more thinking it's a better direction. Maybe in 100 years we'll even shed that. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't know. I haven't thought a lot about this.
I thought it was really interesting that in your mindset, and a little bit of mine too, like the idea why Christians rationalize why you shouldn't be gay is because you need more farm hands. You need more people to like tend your cows. It's like, I need someone to watch this pig, but he better not like other men because there's a lot of pigs here. That makes sense.
I don't get the connection. Can't have gay farmers? What's the problem?
We'll come back to that. Dred, I want to get your point of view. What do you think on deism?
Well, it's kind of like the difference of telling people about your delusion and having a delusion and not telling people about it. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
From a certain perspective.
Like the core is still the same.
Yeah, the core is the same. Exactly. Right. And I always go back to Matt Dillahunty when he says, that faith is belief without evidence. Belief informs our actions, and actions have consequences.
Right.
So there is a real issue in holding a delusion as true, regardless of whether you put a name to it or not.
I want to add to that. I think it's like, I'm building on Dred's analogy, but like it's either a cockroach or a chocolate covered cockroach, right?
That's it. There you go.
Like I know one seems more appetizing because it has, this really nice cover on it, but that core is still the same. It's still a cockroach, man. You don't want anything to do with that. Why are you doing it? And I want to, Larry, I'm gonna suggest something. Let me know if this seems reasonable. But a lot of people appeal to deism for the sake of trying to find connection with something spiritual, or make sense of all these things that do point to a God. And like I said, it doesn't have to point to any specific God. And if that's the case, why pick this God that you can't test, see, reason?
Well, it's just it's a simple answer to why are we here? Why is the universe here? Why are we designed? That's all. I mean, it could be a computer programmer in some other universe that has created the simulation. I mean, deism can point to anything that you give the ability to create a universe. It could, like I said, it could be a fairy. If you decide that fairies can create universes. And
so what I hear from deists a lot is, I believe in a God and he can be anybody. It's like, it could be he. Like in their head, their initial impression was he, because they're typically dudes as well. And it's like, no, I mean, it could be a force or anything like that. Okay, so it's a force we can measure. Like forces are things we can measure. It's like, well, it's an unmeasurable thing. That's like, okay, so it has matter. It's a thing. It's like, no, it's like it literally wiggles and squeezes its way through every form of like questioning. It's frustrating because they believe it. And they may have some sort of sensation of like, if you can't prove that this is not real, then I win. And that's their fun argument. But it's a waste of their time to put effort into something that they can't test. What should be better instead of chasing the deist shadow should be, do you have a good reason to believe this? This is true. And can we talk about that reasoning that you use to come to this point of conviction that you have? And if that path isn't reasonable, I won't be convinced, but I at least want to highlight what my problems are with that methodology that you're using. Because if you're interested in this and you want this belief to be true as well, shouldn't you care about why you believe these things as well? And like, let's talk about the path. So like, we can put deism on a shelf, we can put you on a shelf. Let's just talk about that reasoning that you're using to get to that true conclusion. That seems to be a much more productive route for people who want to have the conversation. That's always an issue of consent. I do have this thing though. It seems to be the case that we are psychologically programmed to seek forms of authority or leadership when we don't know something. And I think that's a human condition. Has Sam Harris ever talked about any of that, Bujo?
Not that I know of, but I
no, because that's an exciting topic, and he's a boring man.
No.
And we all know this. But I think it's a biological programming for us to be like, hey, I don't know this. I'm just going to trust whatever this loud, convincing, calm dude is saying or person is saying. And that's a problem only in the sense of if that person is deluding themselves as well, that delusion trickles down, and delusion tends to trickle down. And I feel like deism was an idea that someone came up with, didn't really think it out, but seemed really captivating to a lot of people who are also scared.
Well, let's not forget that many of the forefathers, American forefathers, founding fathers, were deists.
And that's the least of their problems. Let's be real about this. Like, that was the least of the reasons why these guys were all jerks. I'll call them out all day long.
Tom Paine was definitely a deist.
Okay.
We need to take a mid-show break at this point.
Sure.
This is the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we'll be right back after this short break.
To the curious, the inquisitive, the seekers of knowledge, to the ones who just want to know about life, about the universe, about yourself. Not cute questions, big questions, ones that matter. To the rebels, the artists, the free thinkers, and the innovators who care less about labels and more about truth, who believe nonconformity is more than a bumper sticker, that knowledge is more than words on a page. You're young, you're old, you're powerful beyond measure, and the fuel of that power is not magic or mysticism, but knowledge. The things you see, the things you feel, the things you know to be true. Sure, some will doubt you. Let them. Dare to think for yourself, to look for yourself, to make up your own mind. Because in the eternal debate for answers, the one thing that's true is the power of logic.
Welcome to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is March 7th, 2020. Let's talk about the atheist/freethought groups that you can join here in Knoxville. First, there's the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK. Founded in 2002, we're going in our 19th year now. We have over 1,000 members, and we have weekly Zoom meetings that allow the atheists to get together and chat as a community. You can find us online or on Facebook, or go to knoxvilleatheist.org to find their website. You can also just do a search on Google for Knoxville Atheist, and it'll show up there. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. Another large free-thinking group here in Knoxville are the Rationalists of East Tennessee, RET. Just go to Facebook and look for Rationalists of East Tennessee, or go to rationalist.org and click on upcoming events. Earlier in the show, we said we'd talk about the Knoxville Atheist video show. Well, it used to be a TV show here on local programming, community TV, but now it's moved online to YouTube. So just go to YouTube and look for Knoxville Freethinkers, Knoxville Freethought, that type of thing, and you'll find our archives and our current shows. With us today on the show, we have Wombat as usual, Boudreaux, and Dread Pirate Higgs. Welcome all. Wombat, where you want to pick up?
I had a really serious problem, guys.
No way.
I bought a boat.
Oh, you know what a boat is.
What? What are you talking about?
You know what a boat is?
I know what a boat is. I know what a boat is.
Yeah, it's a hole in the water where you put your money.
Yeah, because the engine broke and it was suck. So I was like, what do I do? This whole engine thing broke, and I went down, I put on my scuba gear, and I looked out at the bottom of the boat. I had this tiny little thing that spun around, and I'm like, that's the thing that went wrong. And so I called Home Depot, and here's the problem with Home Depot. I don't know the names for tools. So I go to the guy, I don't know the names for any of the tools. And I'm like, Javier, this is Javier, how can I help you? I'm like, Javier, I need some help. I need some tools to fix my boat. And he's like, okay, so what do you need? I was like, I need the thing that's like, you know, like it's a nail and it's got the little rails on it. It's like, oh, you need a screw. It's like, I know what a screw is. Okay, fine, I need a screw. And it's like, oh, is it with the pointy screw or the flat screw? It's like, do you mean a bolt? Do you need a bolt, sir? It's like, fine, it's a bolt. Okay, I need a bolt. It's like, wait, do you need the bolt or do you need the thing that goes on the bolt? It's like, I need both. So you need a bolt and a nut. It's like, why are there names for everything? I just need to put them in the hole. What's the hole called? He's like, the holes are just holes, sir. I'm like, Javier, stop playing with me. And it's like, what do I need to fix this, you know, propeller part? It's like, you need a fan. Oh, a fan. What a fan. What a mighty good fan. Guys,
what a mighty good fan.
We are going to go over some listener comments.
Around the barn.
I love it. I get to do my Home Depot stand-up. It's been a while. So we got some good videos going out. I recently posted a really nice video from the Daily Moth. They are a deaf news agency on YouTube, and they made a post that I think really highlights the different ways of how people sign. So they have like correspondents in different parts of the world, and they all have a very distinct accent, sign language wise, even though they're all using ASL. And I made a video highlighting the difference between that. I got a comment that the audio was low, and I think it won't matter as much because it's a whole lot of signing in it. But I will turn up the audio in the future next time. You can't hear the people. They're not talking. Either that or it's a really good joke. I'm gonna have to catch up on that. But yes, Data's Trader Room did make a comment and says, hey, do you think there's a market for sign to voice interpreters? Sign to voice interpreter? Absolutely. And there is a market for it. That's actually a profession. It's called interpreters. And they're all over the place. Strontium 76 made a really, really great scientific comment on the nature of music and how it actually can motivate us. And this is based off the last video that we made, which is called Wonders of Science versus Wonders of Religion, where I think one of our points was like, hey, we're really thankful the impact to an extent that religion had on music, because it really helped to support it, fund it, and that drove the science behind finding out what works in terms of moving people and what doesn't work. And so you can read Strontium 76 comment right here. There's math equations in it. I won't get into it in that detail. Math equations I haven't checked for veracity yet, though. Let's see. Data's Trading Room, though, good friend of the show, he says, based on our show from last week, which was, again, Wonders of Science versus Wonders of Religion, he says, first, I want to mention that I really wanted to comment on the previous episode. You guys made so many SE-worthy statements that I was planning to re-listen and comment on each issue. You, Wombat, that's me, actually should have conducted a long SE intervention. Not on the show, though. Then life happened, and all of a sudden a new episode appeared. Anyway, I want to talk about Ramadan. Now, I don't know, but from what I've heard, they can't eat when Allah can see. If you hide somewhere in the night, they do eat because Allah can't see. Obviously, Allah lacks the wonders of science. So I will say this. I think that's it's a cute interpretation of Ramadan, but I feel like for Ramadan, it's more of like we have set periods of time where we can eat during the day because we can't obviously starve ourselves for, you know, the entire length of Ramadan. And when I talk to my Muslim family, the whole point of it is to put yourself in a position where you can be in a similar mindset of those who are less fortunate than you. And the rich celebrate Ramadan, the athletics celebrate Ramadan, people in space celebrate Ramadan. It's sort of like just this whole community-wide understanding of like people don't always have food. And I feel like just from the American perspective of like, what's a holiday in America like? Christmas? It's like we get free stuff. We get like we have expectations, entitlements.
We eat all day long.
Thanksgiving comes in, we just eat. Halloween, we can just knock on people's door and they don't give us stuff. We can pull pranks on them. But I feel like Ramadan is like one of the best core holidays of like, hey, be good to people, like, and understand where they're coming from. Like, not everybody has a home, not everybody can put food on their plate. There's some good stuff behind it. And I will say one last thing before I throw on to Boudreaux for comments on Ramadan. But I feel like, and let me know what you think about this, Eric. I feel like I sort of give Muslims a free pass that I would not give otherwise to Christians, only because my Christian background is so much more stronger than my Islam background, such that when I hear things from a Christian perspective, I'm way more knee-jerk ready to dismiss it because I came from there. Like,
I think most American atheists are that way.
Right.
We also get a lot of criticism for not pounding on Islam as much as we do Christianity. A lot of people say we give them a pass, but it's just that we were raised in a Christian environment generally, even if it wasn't Christianity per se. The country is oriented in that direction. I mean, think of all the Christmas specials we have every weekend.
Yeah, I'm so tired of all those.
Yeah.
I also feel like a lot of the rhetoric that comes from anti-Muslims come from Christians, and I'm just trying to put myself away from all of that and just be like, listen, you guys do what you guys celebrate how you want to celebrate. Obviously, you know that I don't believe it, but I respect that you're not fighting for team, the home team, because I'm not a fan of the home team. Boudreaux, what do you think? Well,
that's a really, really good, interesting topic, maybe worthy of its own show. But and here I will purposely go the Sam Harris route. I think that's one of the things he did early on in his career when he wrote the End of Faith, which he wrote right after the 9/11. And I think he was trying to take himself out of the Christian kind of the American point of view and just try to criticize all religion. And he really tries to point out some of the real dangers of Islam and some of the things that, yes, we do give passes to, as American atheists or Christians. And I think it gets conflated with xenophobia or racism, Islamophobia. Sam had that episode of Bill Maher's show where Ben Affleck went crazy against him, called him a bigot and a racist and all this. But I mean, he's really just criticizing Islam, just like he's criticizing religion.
Right.
But you're right. There is almost something.
Yeah, you saw that reaction. I saw that reaction. I remember the video you were talking about.
Yeah. So no, it's a good point. And actually, we should maybe step back and say, well, I mean, should we criticize everything equally, or is it worth giving Islam a free pass just to look like better people? I mean, I think is that kind of part of it is you don't want to see.
I think where I'm coming from is I have a standard of critique that obviously if I apply it to Christianity also applies to Islam, but I'm just exhausted from constantly using it on Christianity, that even if it's a different flavor of nonsense, it's at least strawberry flavored nonsense. You're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. Okay,
something different.
Yeah. It's like I'll handle this later, but at least put it on the shelf for now. Dredd, what do you think? I'd like to get your opinion on this.
Specifically. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes, I can hear you.
Well, I guess what I can say may be summed up in a paragraph of the argument I wrote for the judgment. A person does not have to look far past one's own nose to appreciate that all religions are mutually incompatible to varying degrees, and that members of each regularly mock, satirize, and criticize the beliefs of others. Consider the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. While all three have a common origin and worship the same God, a non-Jew is a Gentile, a non-Christian is a heathen, and a non-Muslim is an infidel.
Yep.
When one considers the millions of Gentiles, heathens, and infidels who met with a gruesome end for not believing in the right religion, it may be considered high time that a religion that values humor, self-deprecation, and silliness is the vessel sailing to calmer seas. And should it be posited that Pastafarians are simply atheists rocking the boat of religiosity, we would counter that the diversity of belief is far greater than anyone might realistically account for.
Mm.
Ultimately, we are atheistic to all gods other than the one we believe in.
Ramen.
Ramen.
I'd also throw this out too. Being an atheist doesn't mean you can't have a religion either. So like, even if someone says, well, you're just an atheist, it's like, yeah, but there are atheist religions.
Yeah.
So
most of the Eastern religions are atheistic.
Buddhism, for instance.
Yeah. And so, and while deism is a form of theism, it's like such a weak form of theism that you can basically hang out with the atheists and have a good time.
Oh, yeah.
As long as you support science.
Yeah, we have members in ASK who are deists.
Right. So the spectrum is so broad to come down with like a strict criterion like that. I want to go right back to that Muslim analogy real quick. So if you have delusion, which is like the brand vanilla delusion, and you have delusion light, which is like the deism, I feel like there's like new crystal delusion, which has its like own Cosby commercials and stuff like that. And you're like,
0 calorie.
It's a new formula. Come on, we're trying it out new. And I'm like, it's still delusion, but at least they're trying something different. I'm happy to see that. Yeah, I'm happy to see that it's something different. I'm not gonna try it. I know what's in that bottle, but I'm glad that there's different brands of it. But I don't want to have more vanilla delusion. I think we should try to work our way towards getting people off of that, and let them know that there's better things out there for them to try, or at least question why they're so adherent on that particular brand. I'm going to open this up a little bit. Eric, we were talking about deism today. Is there any sort of like, how do I put this? Is there a form of religious expression that irks you in a minor way, that maybe just comes from a lack of understanding on your part, or from I've dealt with these people before and it's never very a productive conversation. I don't really understand what they believe. I'm not sure if they understand it either. They're just using the label to stay away from atheism. Have you seen stuff like that before?
Yeah. I actually at Summit, which we've talked about before, happens right behind me when we're allowed to be in person. We get a lot of people to come in, and I've mentioned this before, but I think it's a really good point to reiterate. They hang on this agnostic term.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I'm not. They're afraid of, the fundamental, religious person. That's crazy to them.
Yeah.
And they don't really like getting up early on Sunday. So they haven't subscribed to a religion, but they're so scared of atheism as a term that they want something in the middle, and they invent this space between theism and atheism that's like kind of in the middle, and it's a binary term, so there's no space there. So then they pretend that the word agnostic means right in between, and then you get into the issue of knowledge versus belief, and it's a whole another conversation. But yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. You get people that just they're scared of the term atheism for good reason, because atheists are I put in the chat, there are several states that it's at least my understanding that don't allow atheists in public office. And I don't know if that's true in Tennessee, but it was on the list.
When you're in court, you swear on the Bible. To be president, you swear on religious holy books that you may not even represent. Yeah. Larry, what do you got?
Well, I was going to address that about atheism not being allowed in public office in Tennessee. It's in the Constitution the state constitution, that atheists cannot serve in public office. However, that's a founding document. It's not going to change. We have amendments to that document that allow people to, of any faith and no faith, to serve in any public office in Tennessee. But it's like the original U.S. Constitution. It still allows, the original document says we, have slaves and there were 3/5 of a person and all that stuff. It's in there, but we've later changed that so that it's not effective. And it's the same with the Tennessee Constitution.
Wow, that makes sense. And that's what we miss out when we read a Facebook headline and it's a meme and it's meant to get your attention and not be true.
Right.
I think most people are just afraid that atheists are going to eat babies in public.
I wanted to know, like, Dredd, I want to know, and that was a funny thing, that we've done the baby joke many times on the show. So
I've never
a
heard
lot of
it.
people on the show are just
I had
like,
to bring it in.
it's the baby thing again.
Sam
All right,
Harris
here we
say
go.
something about that, or what?
Here
Yeah,
we
I hate
go.
that. I hate that I have to eat them in private.
Yeah.
Right.
Dredd,
Yes.
in Canada, is there as much of a connotation on agnosticism as sort of like the pseudo atheism? I'm not comfortable with the atheism term, or like I'm kind of spiritual, I don't really know where I'm at, but I don't like those atheist people. I don't know what they're really.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, the people who say they're agnostic don't really know what that means.
Yeah.
And they don't know what atheism is to distinguish from it. So, and that's just my personal experience. Not that I'm speaking for Canada in general, but yeah.
I would say.
I mean, you know, in Canada, there is a de facto state religion, of course, and that's the Church of England, because the Queen is our sovereign, right?
Right.
So, you know,
Undying Queen. Yeah.
the undying Queen.
The Undying Queen. She's never going away. I want to say the confusion that comes about when people who are atheists or people who are questioning say that they're agnostic. I feel like religious people gather onto that almost intentionally, because when I have a conversation with Christians who are cool to have these kinds of conversations with, and I explain to them, oh, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in a God. It's like, well, aren't you really agnostic? I was like, why do you know that word? And two, why do you not know why that word means? And then when I say I am both agnostic and atheist, like, I don't understand what that means. I'm like, then where did you hear that word from? And they must have heard it from their leadership, who just said, those guys are agnostic. No definition. They just know the term is them. Yeah. And I feel that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I like to ask them, if somebody tells me they're an agnostic, but they're not an atheist, I said, well, what does agnostic mean? And they'll say, it means I don't know. I said, okay, you told me what you know or don't know. Tell me what you believe. And that kind of throws them. So it comes right down on that. But
it is,
you know, they'll come back with, I don't know if I believe or not. So
and I found
it's right back up in the air.
And I found the question of knowledge is a much better conversation to have than on theism belief or atheism. Like, just let's focus on this, on knowledge. Like, what do we know and how do we know it? Right. And a lot of the times at the end of those conversations, you can get a diehard theist to at least admit that they're an agnostic theist, which in my head is like, why believe it if you don't know if it's true? That seems like the most reasonable thing. And oftentimes it has nothing to do with the belief. It's just social pressure. It's like, if I
or their
stop believing
personal
this,
preference. I know deists who believe in God just because they want to.
But what does your personal preference have on impact of whether or not it's true or not? Right. So like, and why does the effect of, well, my wife will not like me as much if I, don't believe this, or my job opportunities might go down if I don't believe in this, or I won't have as many friends, or it might be harder to make more friends.
Talking about pragmatism there.
All of those things might be true, but it doesn't have any impact on whether or not it's actually a real thing or not. And that's, I feel, is the admission that they're believing it because they have to believe it, not because they actually are convinced that it's true. And there's this distinction of like, next level of like, I can't believe something even if I really want to, if I'm not convinced that it's true. So I'm just saying that I am religious just to keep my life easy, even though I both know and I'm unwilling to admit that this in fact is not actually accurate, that there was in fact not a guy who walked on water.
That's a lot of Pascal's wager too. It's not so much that they want you to change your belief, it's just say that you believe when you don't.
Right. But a lot of those guys just need a, how do I put this? They need a path that's not as scary. They need people on the other side who are open about it to say like, but you are on this side and we're friends. Maybe it's worthwhile to just have friends that actually care about who you are as a person, not who you pretend to be or pretend to be in public. And that might be less stressful. Maybe it'd be better to have spouses or significant others that respect me for who I am rather than who I, lie that I am once a week. And maybe I can save 10% of my paycheck. All these are great things. Eric, that was a great point. I have a lot of umbrage against the way how agnostic is misused. I will throw out one other last thing. I think we have like maybe 5 more minutes before the end of the show or before we start closing. I hate how scientific terms get misused by the general public at all cases. And I feel like when things get political, the quality of scientific terms that already have an established meaning are diluted. I feel like the same things happen to theory. Like theory used to mean something. Now everyone's got theories and you're just like, oh, but these don't count. And so I think for at least 2020, 2021, I'm going to throw a rest in peace little sign for personal research. the term personal research, right? Because that used to mean something, at least when I was in grad school. And Eric, you might be able to support me on this too. You're a scholastic nerd as well. I'm saying, like, when I said, hey, I did some research and I found out that I was wrong about XYZ, that would have been good enough for people to be like, oh, good. Then you probably had a good reason for being wrong. But now it's like, well, I thought the government wasn't eating babies, but I did some personal research. And guess what I found out? There's this guy on the internet named XYZ. He's the son of Q.
Pizzagate.
And I'm like, you're right. We need to storm the Capitol again. I was like, hold on, guys. Personal research doesn't mean what you think it means anymore. All right. That's my 3 cents. Dredd, where can we find your stuff? Where you're going to be at in the future?
I am still on my YouTube channel, Mind Pirate, MINDPYRATE. I'm still trying to figure out how to get it set up because I've shifted computers. Sure. I want to try and get this set up so it can live stream on Sundays.
I saw you broadcasting. This morning when I was making
and I just couldn't get my microphone, which has always been the hanging point for me on this silly thing. But
I'll tell you what I've done. Sometimes I have trouble getting my second camera to work. This one that I'm pointing at too. So I just have 2 cameras. One of them will work. Maybe you just need an extra mic. You got one on your headset, possibly. Maybe you can.
Maybe that's what I should do.
Yeah, just like one of these is going to work.
Yeah.
All right. And we're also going to see on the Toronto Star. It seems like that's the thing.
Yeah. I actually, if we've got a second, I just want to read the last paragraph of the judge's thing. It says, the tribunal, the Human Rights Tribunal, determined that accepting the petitioner's my complaint, for filing, quote, would not further the purposes of the code, unquote, one of which is to promote a climate of understanding and mutual respect where all people are equal in dignity and respect, unless you're a Pastafarian, clearly.
Right.
The judge goes on to say, in my view, the tribunal's decision was neither clearly irrational nor so flawed that no amount of curial deference can justify letting it stand. Accordingly, it cannot be said to have been patently unreasonable.
So we'll see him in church.
I argue that.
Yeah, we'll see him in church on next Sunday. You'll be able to meet him there. The illusions, guys, it doesn't go away when you get letters at the end of your name or put on a black coat.
Right.
They are permeated through society. Yeah. Eric, you got new music down the pipe? What's going on with you?
I got nothing digitally going on here, really. But my buddy Chad, who's the show, has his house on that he was working on for sale. So I'm hoping he gets that thing sold. And he and I get back to cracking on our show. So I've got a huge list of ideas for some topics. So we might be able to hit the ground running with some shows, keep them kind of short or something, and then just put out a bunch. So
yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. What if you just made the shows like 10 minutes each and you just did several in one session and just be like, what do you think about this? Boom. Yeah. Buds talking about budding buds or whatever you want to call about it.
Yeah. No, I like it.
Hot topics.
I'll get you guys early reviews of it. So
very, very cool.
Yeah,
I'm down. Just let me know. And you can find my stuff on Let's Chat. I'm going to do some more sign language breakdowns from the Daily Moth, this deaf news broadcast show. It's towards my interests of trying to help people better communicate with each other. You can find that on my channel, Let's Chat. And if you're watching this YouTube channel, you're probably there already. And I will turn up my volume, but I guarantee you they are not talking. It won't matter much, and I'm signing too. So, like, maybe you might want to get to the point where you just steadily turn it down. Maybe that's what I'm doing. Like, maybe I'm just getting it quieter and quieter so that you have to learn how to sign to appreciate the show. Anyway, Daughter 5. I have this big burning question in my heart. I have all this atheism around me, and I don't know what any of it's all about. And there's cockroaches and chocolate-covered cockroaches too. I don't know what should I think.
I don't know about the cockroaches, but I have a book out. It's called Atheism, What's It All About? It's available on Amazon. You can find it there. And it's not audio, but it is Kindle. So you can buy an ebook if you like. Or you can go to digitalfreethought.com and read an awful lot of my content there. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles. If you have questions for the show, please send them to askanatheist@knoxvilleatheists.org. We'll answer them on future shows. If you're having trouble leaving religious beliefs behind, maybe emotion or problems with that, you can also go to recoveringfromreligion.org. They have people there to help you with that. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. My YouTube channel can be found under Larry S. Rhodes. This has been the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next week. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.